Back in November, I had my first ever panic attack. Not something to be proud of or to pride yourself in, but I ended up working till probably 12:30 in the morning, and I was just in the zone. Like if you ever been in the zone, you know the zone, and you're like, I'm in the zone. And I was at my computer, I was at my desk right here, and I was like, oh boy, it's 10:30. My back kind of hurts. I'm just gonna go in my bed. I'll take my laptop with me. I'll leave this over here, and I'll go in there. And I put it down, and 12:30 came around, or what 12:20, and I just had so much energy still. And then I went into this state of like, what's going on? I don't feel like I'm actually here right now. Nothing makes sense. And then just full on panic attack. My body was shaking. It was bad. It was super duper bad. And I mean, even just from talking about what we've talked about here, and even, from that time to today, I think I've learned that you have to have cutoffs. You have to go out for a walk. You have to not let something fully control you. But what other advice would you have for like something like not letting that happen to anyone else?
Well, I think, you have to think about where does the panic come from? I mean, a lot of times panic attacks have no particular origin, and that's what makes them so difficult for people. But sometimes, too, they're often brought about by people having high amounts of stress. So I would look at stress management rather than anything else first and see, all right, well, if there's no clear like trigger for it, there wasn't anything you're doing that like triggered some kind of previous trauma, there's no like nothing like that, it's probably just a high amount of stress. And so looking at if you can do more effective stress management, and sometimes that means, and I know you all drink a lot of coffee, sometimes that means
coffee since then. I've cut out all caffeine.
All right. So that's another thing, is that like looking at caffeine intake, because it is a central nervous system stimulant, right? So trying to look at limiting caffeine, making sure you get your rest, having effective stress management, which means like exercising, those types of things. Those are baseline things that anybody can do, and having those cutoffs. But if you experience those things, a lot of times they don't come from any particular trigger. And so, it can make people kind of scared to have something like that happen again, because they feel like I'm having a heart attack, or, and it's often confused with a heart attack.
Yeah, and I thought I was having a heart attack. It was like, I'm laughing about it, but it was like the worst experience of my life. It was, not fun.
And it's so weird because me and Steven were talking about our panic attacks, because I had them whenever I was working at Hetty while going to school full time. I was just working too many stressors, and our panic attacks were different. And, the symptoms of it were different. Whenever I had mine, I just wanted to sprint. Like, my brain said, run. And I was just like, I just had to sprint. And his was different.
Mine was more like the what is it, like the fight or flight. Mine wasn't flight, though. Mine was just deer in headlights. Like, it was just literally I just couldn't move. You're like frozen. You're like, I literally think I'm dying. Maybe I'm already dead. I don't know.
Not uncommon to see people come into the ER with panic attacks who have symptoms so similar to a heart attack. They end up running, tests and making sure that their heart is okay. So, I mean, it's a completely normal experience. But if you notice that you're overwhelming yourself with so much work and stress, and
it's
the
like
things
constant,
are
right.
Yeah, and there's low-grade stressors too that we don't think about, like the fact you're living in a pandemic. Like, I know that we don't like talk about that a lot anymore, but like we're literally living in a pandemic. Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
So like there's a low-grade stressor all the time around like infection and death and all of those things that are happening around you. We kind of block them out, but they're always there. And then there's things around like the news and politics and, irritation, people angry on Twitter, that's a low-grade stressor. So that there's all sorts of things that are happening in the background. And I would also encourage you to like try to think about what those things are and try to kind of limit those as much as possible. So like if you're somebody who watches the news every night, like I probably wouldn't. Like I personally don't watch the news more than like once or twice a week, because I just find it stressful and unnecessary. Like I'm going to hear the same message every day. So it's never going to be great.
If it's important enough, you'll hear about it.
Absolutely. Maybe my mom will call or something, like, but it's truly like, look at the stressors right now. And it could be even personal stressors in your life as well. Maybe you have a parent who's sick, or, pet that's sick, or, whatever it happens to be. But you try to reduce the amount of stressors that you can, and kind of form the best foundation that you can. A way to look at it is that we're all walking around with a cup, and that the more full that cup is, the more likely it is to spill over. So you want to get empty your cup as much as possible from stressors, so that it takes a lot more to spill things over for you. And I think that's a good rule of thumb for us all, is to kind of reduce what's in that cup. So we're just walking around and we can kind of put more in it when we need to, without having some kind of bad after effects.